It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about every single day. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America region, hailing out of Wichita, Kansas, in the heart of the nation, literally on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, and broadcasting across the entire Mid-America network. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along today. It is a Wednesday. Hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's just the way we roll every single day. 8 minutes past the hour. Welcome aboard. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we have a big show coming up for you today. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a heck of a show, heck and a half, really, as we have some great guests today. We have some great conversation, although I am frustrated in the sense that right now, and it's been going on for a while, and you can hear if you listen to a lot more talk radio other than just this show, or even just this show, but you listen to the news throughout the day and you try and keep track of a lot of the things happening, that there's really a major topic that people have been talking about ad nauseum over and over and over and over every day for the weeks on end. And it's really been these guns and the school safety and the protests and the students and the shootings and the guns and the yada, yada, yada. And it's getting old, isn't it? It's getting really old, and we are going to focus a little bit on that today when it comes to, we're going to step away from the gun issue in just a minute, because we need to look at, we're going to be the productive ones here. We're not going to be the ones that just complain. We're not going to be the ones that just throw a fit about everything. We're going to be the productive ones. So if we're going to say that guns aren't the problem and that people are the problem, that we need to look at society as a solution for the problem, then that's what we're going to do on the show. So coming up in a little bit, we're going to actually look at the real issues and potential problems on what we see in society that are leading to some of the problems that we're seeing in society today. So we'll do that in a little bit. But in regards to the guns, the state of Kansas has voted on a few different pieces of legislation over the last few weeks. We've talked about them. We had the NRA liaison on a couple of days ago. We've talked to some of our state legislators about some of the gun votes that have been happening. But there was another vote yesterday, and this shows there's some good news and some troubling news. And the troubling news is that there are Democrats and even Republicans, a large portion of the Republicans in our state House of Representatives in the state of Kansas, that actually have shown their true colors. Now, they're predominantly progressive Republicans that have voted with many Democrats in the past, so it's really not a big news there. The big news is that this really shows the agenda. If we're talking about the gun security issue, school safety issue, if we're going to focus on that and what we can do to make our children safer, to educate our children, to have programs in place to actually make the children understand, like something as basic and simple as like the Eddy Eagle program. The Eddy Eagle initiative from the NRA that really just says to young children, elementary school, maybe a little bit of middle-aged school kids, that just say, if you find a firearm, what you should do with it, to not touch it, leave it on the ground or wherever it is, go tell a parent. And that's really, it's the Eddy Eagle. It's a very simple thing. It's a very safe program. It's a very simple program. It's not teaching them how to clean the gun. It's not teaching them how to use the gun. It's not teaching them how to assemble or disassemble the gun. It's a very simple, this is the firearm, be careful, walk away from it, go tell an adult and they'll take care of it for you. There was a vote yesterday in the House of Representatives in the state of Kansas that actually wanted to repeal the legislation moving forward in a big gun bill to repeal the Eddy Eagle initiative out of the bill. This is House Bill 2773, and it was an initiative to try and repeal the Eddy Eagle program, a very simple program to want to teach young children not to play with guns. Now, you would think it's common sense that even if somebody wants to repeal guns and wants to ban the Second Amendment, wants to get rid of all these different firearms, you would think this would be a very simple, very commonsensical type of vote to say, yes, we don't want children around firearms. And if they find a firearm, then we would want to repeal, or we would want them to go and tell an adult and actually not handle the gun and think that it's a toy and start playing with it. And that could be whether you're at school, that could be whether you're out in public, that could be whether you're at home and the gun got left out of the gun safe. Regardless of where it is, that Eddy Eagle program is a very simple tool to start teaching children the safety and the dangers of firearms. And guess what? It did get voted down as the initiative to repeal, so it's a good thing it did not pass, which is a very good thing. The problem is that we still had 49 individuals vote to repeal the initiative. 49 of them. Can you believe it? And out of that 49 of them, 15 of them were Republicans. We had a third of those votes, 33% of them actually voting to repeal the Eddy Eagle initiative from actually passing in the state. Now, this shows the agenda that it has nothing to do about wanting to keep gun safety. It has nothing to do from the progressive side of the aisle where they actually want to be smart about firearms. They actually want to handle firearms appropriately. It has nothing to do with that. It's not about keeping the children safe, and that's the biggest point we need to walk away from this is they don't care about the safety of the children. That's a bystander of what they're trying to fight for, but their main agenda is to get rid of the guns completely. Because we don't need an Eddy Eagle initiative if we don't have a gun around in the household anyways, right? We don't need to have an Eddy Eagle initiative for the young children if they're not going to find a gun anywhere in the general public or in the schools or in the home or anywhere. We don't need the program. And that's their priority right now is they don't give a you-know-what about the actual safety of firearms. They only care about making the guns go away so far that the children never have to see them, so therefore they never need to know about the safety or the dangers or the understanding of how powerful a firearm may be. They really don't care. So that's the troubling news to start off the morning, is the fact that we actually have 15 Republicans out of 49 votes total, 49 people in our state legislature that don't even understand the concept of the Eddy Eagle program and actually want our children to be safe around firearms to go tell an adult about that. That's the basic simplicity of the Eddy Eagle program, and they don't even want that. They are so desperate to repeal all the guns that they don't even want the safety or the understanding of the firearm. Now, the good news is that there is discussion happening right now, Hat Tip to Cake TV, of the fact that yesterday morning in the House Insurance Committee, there was a hearing for House Bill 2789. Now, that one is to allow not only the carry on campus, but also for teachers to be able to carry firearms in the school. So that discussion is actually happening. And if the vote's anywhere close to where it's been for some of the other initiatives, when it comes to the Second Amendment, we might actually have a chance to let that go through. 75 voted nays for the last one to repeal that Eddy Eagle program, which means we could probably have Republicans, the majority of Republicans, to actually be able to vote for in both chambers the bill allowing teachers to carry guns in school. Now, I understand a lot of people don't like that. There's been the discussion of buckets of rocks in the classroom. There's been discussion of more security officers, which is fine. We saw, Leavenworth Middle School, I believe it was, that actually said that they're going to come out with their initiative to actually allow the security guards that they actually have there to actually start being able to carry firearms, which you would think, hey, well done. I'm glad that we came around to commonsensicalism. But it's not going to be forcing every teacher to actually carry the firearm. It's going to be allowing the teachers to choose whether they want to carry a firearm or not. Now, we're all about choice, right, progressives? We're all about the choice of individuals to make the choices that they want to, because you don't want government or you don't want evil, terrible people telling you what you can and cannot do. So you're all about choice, right? So progressives, you would be about the choice of a teacher choosing with their own choice to decide whether they want to carry a firearm or not. They do not have to. It's not a forcefulness of that. It is a choice, because progressives are all about choice, which means you would think they'd be in support of that, right? 316-721-8255. The two gun bills that are actually being discussed in our state legislature right now, one of them a good one with that one of them concerning the fact that even when it comes to a regular session vote for House Bill 2773, we have many Democrats and about a third of what actually voted for the repeal of the Eddy Eagle initiative were actually Republicans. This is troubling in the fact that this really exposes their agenda, that they don't care about gun safety. All they care about is getting rid of the gun so we don't have to worry about the understanding of the safety. We got about a minute and a half before a break. Let's go ahead and take a phone call, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Yes, Jim.
Hey, good morning, Jim.
The Eddie Eagle program is hated because it is the NRA Eddy Eagle program.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not the guns in this case that they want to get rid of. They want to get rid of any kids from kindergarten on up associating the NRA with something.
Yeah, they're just trying to spite the NRA. But the fact is that if they understood what the program actually was, it really has nothing to do with like the NRA training all these nice little drones about how to use firearms. It's just telling them to be safe around them and that it's not a toy. And it's a very simple cut. Even progressives want that type of mentality.
You're missing a point. And the point is some of these people don't care if kids and school teachers get killed. They want that blood so they can pass laws.
So they can continue more agenda.
Guns. They want to repeal the Second Amendment, and they want to destroy the United States. Some of them don't even understand that.
Right.
But that is the ultimate goal of some people.
No, you're right, and I appreciate that, Jim. You're absolutely right, and that's why, and that's what I mentioned. I mean, it is exposing them for their true agenda. Because we don't want gun safety, we don't want the understanding of firearms, we don't want to teach the children that it's not a toy, but it's actually a tool and a firearm and something very, very dangerous. We don't want that because if people do see more accidental discharges, if we do see kids playing with the firearms and it goes off and it kills a child or it kills a family member, then guess what? That's more in their arsenal to say we need to repeal the guns because people aren't responsible enough with them instead of actually training them to be responsible. They don't want that because we are showing them their true agenda. And the fact that Republicans themselves in our state legislature have that same type of agenda is kind of concerning to me. Of Reason, 24 minutes past the hour. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It is a Wednesday, hashtag Patriotic Wednesday, Freedom Loving Wednesday, whatever you want to call it, does not matter. We love having you aboard with us. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, isn't it sad that we have legislated? Now, I'm putting words in their mouth right now. This is not them saying this, but just by deductive reasoning, if you do not want children to be educated on the dangers and the safety of firearms and learn how to become safe around firearms, then you, by default, don't want them to be safe around firearms. So you maybe hidden secretly deep down in your inner being want an unsafe environment around a gun. So that way when it happens and you have more arson to say, hey, you know what, the guns are really dangerous and people don't know how to use them. So therefore, let's go ahead and start taking away the firearms. This is not a conspiracy theory. I'm not wearing the tinfoil hat right now, am I? I mean, you're watching TV or Facebook Live. I'm not wearing the tinfoil hat right now. It's just by deductive reasoning. That if you don't want young children to say, oh, hey, there's a gun over there, I don't want to play with it because it's not a toy, then by default, then you kind of do want that, right? So you don't want the education of the children just because you want to spite an organization like the NRA. So that way when it happens, you can come back to the NRA and say, you guys are terrible because you're promoting guns that are unsafe to our children. And Republicans in our state legislature are actually promoting that. And I do want to read their names, by the way, just their last names in the district that they actually live in, so that way you're aware, wink, wink, hint, hint, for when it comes to the primary races come up later on this year. Becker in District 104, Brim in District 39. We've had her on the show before. Need to get her back on. Clayton, District 19. Cox, District 17. Dietrich, I believe is how you pronounce it, District 52. Gallagher, District 23. Good, District 75. Carlskint, District 42. Kasinger, District 20. Costin, District 28. Lewis, 113. Markley, District 8. Raffi, District 48. Rooker, District 25. And Sloan, District 45. All of these are the Republicans that voted for the repeal of the Eddy Eagle initiative. So the agenda has been exposed, and we need to be aware of that as we move on with a lot of the elections. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Listener on Facebook, scholars at the university spreading scientific reports that claim uneducated white men or white men, per their verbiage, according to the reports, are increasing firearm stocks and from insecurity of losing their jobs. We've read that story before. It's fantastic to listen to the panic that they have. Now, these are probably the same professors that came out, like we mentioned yesterday, that say that if white women actually, or white men too, if white individuals actually do yoga, then we are culturally appropriating people from India who started yoga, and then we have yoga classes that are too expensive for minority groups like people from India, because apparently people from India are very poor and cannot afford to go to a yoga class, and therefore we are promoting our extreme capitalism, our extreme white privilege, and our extreme racism in the state, or in the country, by culturally appropriating individuals that started yoga, and then we've taken it to our own culture and become our whiteness of like culture. This is their scare tactic. Now, because it's very easy for them. I mean, if a story comes out and says, yeah, look, it's white men that are collecting all the guns and stockpiling all the firearms because they're insecure about the way society's going. They're scared about them being taken away. They're scared about their job insecurities, which doesn't make any sense now because the economy is actually ticking back up and people are more secure in their jobs. But it's easy for them to say, because then if you say that you're a gun owner, then automatically, look what they do. They've labeled you. They love the labels on the progressive side of the aisle. They love it. So if they're able to label you and say that, oh, look, you're a white individual that goes and takes a yoga class, you are culturally appropriating, so therefore you're by default a racist, which is odd because mostly, now, I don't know, maybe a lot of conservatives do yoga. I don't know. I don't do any yoga. But I would say that predominantly the people that I've met, especially in like the Colorado Springs area that did yoga, were predominantly on the left side of the aisle. They were the open-minded progressives who wanted the inner peace of yoga. I'm not saying that that's all the mentality of yoga, but that's a lot of them that I had met. They love to label. So now if you go and you say, I'm one of those gun owners, then all of a sudden you're labeled as insecure. You're labeled as unstable. You're labeled as one of those gun grabbers. You're labeled as one of those Bible-thumping weirdos. You're labeled as one of those white supremacists. You're labeled as one of those that should automatically be dismissed. Look, if they can control the conversation, if they can control the debate, then they've already won. If you walk into the debate and you already have that label on you, no one will believe you or listen to you from the get-go. That is their purpose, and that's what they've tried to do. If you're a Donald Trump supporter, then you're by default automatically a womanizer or support womanizing, so therefore you don't support women. If you are a Trump supporter, then you're automatically a populist or you're a wacko, and therefore you are a racist, you're a bigot, you hate brown people, you hate people coming from the southern border, you hate everybody else except for white privileged individuals. And by default, to their mindset, is that if you are one of those and you walk into a debate, maybe you walk into a panel discussion at a university, maybe you're on some type of TV debate show, maybe you're on a radio show, if you are one of those, then you are automatically labeled as such, and therefore no one should listen to you. By default, they should already ignore you. Which means if they already ignore you, then they've already won the debate, because no matter what you say, no one will pay attention to it. Nobody will take it seriously. If that is their goal now, they love to be able to define the terms. So the Scientific American blog, with these studies from universities about how it's white men just collecting all these guns because they're insecure, that's what their labeling is. Look at that. He's an insecure kind of guy. Don't listen to him. He's nuts. He doesn't know. He doesn't have his life in order. He's unstable because he thinks he needs to cling on to his guns and his Bible and wave and wrap himself in the American flag. And look how crazy that actually looks. They've already labeled you. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Patriotism is alive and well.
We were so excited when Donald Trump got elected that we weren't going to be bullied any longer. We weren't going to have people push us around. We're not going to apologize for who we are, and we're not going to let people walk all over us. We're not going to tolerate it because we're not the weak, spineless country that we used to be.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into it. Great to have you along today. It is a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's the way we start off your day. Welcome aboard Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink, trying to get you riled up, ready to go for the day. Let's carpe diem. Let's have a great one. Let's be productive, regardless of what political side of the aisle you're on. Does not matter. My goal in the morning is to try and give you information, a little opinion on there as well. Cakes, okay. It's like the cake that has like 3 times the amount of frosting that you actually need on the cake there. It's the information. The information's still there, but we got to put it into the right context with my opinion, because right now with the media, they can really twist it and manipulate it the way they want to, and they do the same thing, even in the mainstream media. Don't get them wrong. So we just, put the context on top of it, which is the icing on the cake that is about 3 times the layers of what the actual size of the cake actually is. Is that a good analogy? Does that work? 316-721-8255, 316-721. Talk enough about the guns for now. We've talked about the guns a lot over the last few weeks. It is angering, it's frustrating, and it gets old after a while. We'll continue to keep you posted when there's more gun updates and legislation going on with that, but I think that's enough for today. I do want to play an interview with our state representative, Brenda Landwehr, that we had yesterday, but first let's go ahead and take a phone call, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. What's up?
Well, I noticed that they said it was a success that they had the college basketball tournament here. However, what I'm seeing is they're not using that same vigor in producing jobs and creating jobs here in this area. It seemed like they were able to do a special interest type deal and put a lot into it, but when it comes time to work on the common people, they don't seem to be able to do anything. And, the mayor, you never see him anywhere except, he just pops his head every once in a while. I'm still wondering what they're going to do with this train that's supposed to be coming through. Supposed to have some
with the Amtrak, sure, yeah. Scott, have you been able to listen to our Tuesday updates with the City Council member Brian Fry?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything out here either. So.
Okay. Every Tuesday at 7:30, we've been having a city update with the City Council member Brian Fry, and we've been discussing that. And they're still working on the Amtrak. They're working on a lot of the job initiatives. They're working on a lot of those programs. I know it takes a little bit longer, obviously, and I appreciate the call, Scott. I want to move on here, but tune in every Tuesday 7:30. We have our city update with City Council member Brian Fry, and definitely call in and ask a question. And I'd highly encourage that because he's a great individual. He's been giving us the lowdown on what's happening with every weekly city council meeting, every hot topic that's been going on, from the fireworks to the jobs to the Amtrak to everything happening. And stay tuned in with that. So it's great information. I appreciate that because I'm glad you're aware of it, and I'm glad that you want to see that happen in the city. So stay tuned in for that every Tuesday, and then, of course, anything on top of that if anything actually happens throughout the week. All right, I want to play an interview. We sat down with her yesterday, State Representative Brenda Landwehr from the Wichita area, and I want our Western stations to listen to this as we talk a little bit about the guns. I think I edited that part out for the most part, but it was a lot of the discussion when it comes to the finance, the tax rates that may be happening, and what to expect with the end of the session for the last few weeks. We are getting wrapped up towards the end of this. This is what Brenda Landwehr, state representative, had to say yesterday right here on the Voice of Reason. State Representative Brenda Landwehr back with us. When it comes to K through 12 education, we talked with State Representative Leo Delperding right after the school study came out. What was your take on this study? It says we need close to $2 billion worth of additional funding. Is that feasible, Brenda? What do we do from here on out?
Well, $2 billion is not feasible, nor do I think it's reasonable. And second of all, we're still trying to dive into it. There's a lot of data to look at, find out, what, when she makes a statement, what data does she use to make that statement? One of the things that really stuck out for some of us is that there's nothing talked about on how teachers should get raises. We base teachers' raises on how many years they've been teaching, not on whether or not they're a quality teacher or the best teacher in a classroom. And that's something that really needs to change.
That it does. I mean, that's what we need to focus on. Is there any way that we can focus on and put some priority and put some responsibility back onto the local school boards? I mean, we need to start looking at other than just, hey, the state legislature didn't give us enough money, is what we hear from the local school boards all the time, to you're the ones that actually break down where all the money goes. Last time we gave you a whole bunch of new money, you ended up increasing the salaries and hired new administrators rather than actually giving the teachers the salary hikes that they actually needed. And if we're going to give you any more money, it's up to you to be responsible enough to actually decide where that money is going to go. And we need to start taking the focus away from the legislature and back to the local school boards.
Well, it really does, Andy. It's because once we release that money to the school boards, they have the power to spend it how they see fit and where they see fit. And if they prioritize improperly, they just come back and say, oh, we need more, we don't have enough. Whereas if you and I budget improperly, spend improperly, and deciding that taking a trip is more important than making our house payment, then that's a problem. And I think that's what we're seeing. And the people need to really understand that, talking to their local school board members, writing to their local school board members, attending the meetings, and hoping that they will give you the opportunity to talk, because some school board members, and I think we actually had a couple that were ousted in the last election, that didn't think that they had to really listen to the people. They listened to the administrator of the school district and not the people who elected them.
Well, come on, Brenda. I want to be able to go on a trip, and if I come back and I can't afford my mortgage payment, all I have to do is go back to my boss and say, you need to give me more money, and you need to cut out the expenses out of your business because I need to spend more money, and that's just the way it is.
Well, if I was your boss, I'd say, well, thank you, Andy. It's been nice working with you. You're fired.
When can we start doing that for our legislature? Because now we're hearing, I've read numerous different news articles saying that now, oh, you know what? It's a great idea. Maybe we should double or triple your property tax rate. Oh, maybe we should increase the sales tax rate, even though we have some of the highest sales tax in the country. Oh, maybe we should start implementing internet sales tax because we're losing out on that revenue. Then I saw the story from the Wichita Eagle saying, hey, we should probably start getting rid of some exemptions and write-offs on your taxes because look at all the lost revenue from the government with you being able to write stuff off on your taxes.
Well, people need to remember is that when you talk about the government losing revenue, it means that they either started taking less out of your pocket, or there's not enough jobs out there. People aren't making money. So, then the revenues decrease because government doesn't create a product like a business does. They only get money if they take it out of somebody's pocket. And, unfortunately, people have a tendency to spend other people's money more freely than they would their own. There is less accountability to the voters on the K-12 budget compared to a lot of the social services budget that I have the privilege of chairing a committee on. And it's like, where's the accountability? How do we know? Does building a brand new building really improve the education of child? We had someone stand before the K-12 budget committee last week that said, did you know that a child does not get a good education in an older building? And I'm like, wow, that's amazing because my grandkids are doing pretty good in a building that was built in 1955.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you,
teacher.
It is the teacher. It's the environment and the teacher, not necessarily what surrounds them when it comes to the walls. I mean, when I did a missions trip out to Sri Lanka right after the tsunami, and let me tell you, there were children that were being taught in an open room that had no windows, that had the weather coming down on them all the time, whether it was wind, rain, it doesn't matter. They were out there in the open. It was almost like a canopy of a picnic that you'd have it out at the park, and that's where they were learning their education. Let me tell you, their graduation rates are extremely high, so I'm not too concerned about what surrounds them with walls.
No, I think the focus has to be in the classroom, and that's something back in 2005 during the Montoy case, when that decision came down, is, we tried to say, okay, 65% of all the funds have to go into the classroom. And it's interesting how they will argue that, oh, we're doing that, and they'll put expenses in there that they call it, well, it's part of the classroom, but yet when we do studies, they say, oh, no, that can't be accounted for, what's being spent on a child, and it's kind of ridiculous. I think the other thing that we're dealing with, Andy, in our K-12 system is, we talk about school safety. Well, where a lot of that starts, and that's dealing with some of the mental health issues that we have in our state and across our country. I learned here a couple of weeks ago in talking to some teachers that we have kindergarten teachers that are now stressed out. They're not necessarily enjoying what they're doing because of the behavioral health issues that children are coming to school with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to make sure that all of the money that we're spending on pre-K programs, so prior to starting kindergarten, that money gets accounted and that those programs are doing what they're supposed to do. It's important and that we work on this mental health piece that I think we're going to be able to do a pilot project this year. I'm very, very excited about it. We're working out the details right now that we can actually get 24/7, 365 mental health services for our kids in school rather than just at the school building. And, some work on our foster care, because our foster care kids suffer a lot in the K-12 system because they get bounced from one place to another.
Sure.
And here's what happens, Andy, is it was really devastating here a couple of weeks ago on a couple of the budgets. One was dealing with the Department of Children and Family, and they stripped all the spending that we had done in the budget committee from the 19 because they said, no, we don't have enough money. We're concerned we're not going to be able to handle the K-12 budget, so we're going to pull this funding. And it's like, okay, so when people are complaining about children missing from foster care, they didn't want to fund an additional investigator so that we can go out and find those kids, pick those kids up, and bring them back.
Sure.
They argued over $90,000 travel expenses. Well, Andy, when you send someone out to pick up a couple of kids, which right now we're doing in California, that means 2 workers have to go out. You can't send just one.
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge issue that we need to address. I mean, we have a lot of issues that need to be addressed in the state other than just the K through 12. And when we sink all the money into the K through 12, that really ties the hands of every legislature to say whether it's the foster care system like this, whether it's trying to make things a little more efficient, whether it's trying to audit some of the other programs and departments, that we don't have the opportunity to do so because for whatever reason, the iron grip control that the Department of Education, the special interests, the teachers unions for education have on the legislature and on all of the legislation that happens in Topeka is really troubling because we can't focus on the right things that we need to. There it is, State Representative Brenda Land. We're out of time for the rest of that interview, but aren't we learning so much today about many of our state legislative officials as we start realizing the agendas they actually have, the priorities they have, and who gets in the way? Well, it doesn't really matter. Who really cares? We're actually going to get something done what we want to, and everybody else can go kick rocks or maybe throw them in the classroom. Lots more coming up, wrapping up hour number 1. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
To the top of the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. That's just the way we roll. We're the doers. We're the getter-doners. We're the productive members of society. Allegedly is where we're always at. Let's go to Rick with the news. What do you say?
And it's time for some good news.
Okay, here we go, people.
It is about time for some good news, ain't it?
We get more done in the morning before 7 o'clock than some people do all day
Than a progressive
long.
does in a week's time.
You know, that commercial that came on right before we came live again for Hatman Jacks, I was in there yesterday.
Yeah?
Dude, these Kentucky Derby hats that they've got, you have got to take Tiffany down there. She would be able to rock some of this stuff.
Rock some of that.
It is so cool.
I tell you what, we actually on Friday last week, we ended up having a date night and we were walking in that area and we walked past the store. They were closed, but she just looked through the window and she's like, wow.
Yeah, wow.
They really are the place of hats.
Yeah, they definitely are. Hatman Jacks at the Clock Tower in Delano. Hey, news-wise, 3 people now have been indicted in the death of 10-year-old Caleb Schwab on what was promoted as the world's largest water slide 2 years ago. The Kansas Attorney General's office says Schlitterbahn Water Parks and Resorts co-owner Jeffrey Henry and ride designer John Schooley are now charged with reckless second-degree murder in the indictment that was unsealed yesterday. The charges stem from the 2016 death of Caleb Schwab, who was on the ride when his raft went airborne, killing him. Kansas lawmakers have approved tougher penalties for making false calls to police 3 months after Wichita police fatally shot a man during a deadly hoax emergency call. The Wichita Eagle reports the Andrew T. Finch bill makes fake calls that result in death a felony comparable to second-degree murder. And the plummeting number of refugees resettling in Kansas City mirrors a national trend, particularly among predominantly Muslim countries. The U.S. Department of State data compiled by the Associated Press shows that fewer than 480 refugees resettled in Kansas City last year. That compares with 740 in 2016. There you have it. Some news headlines.
Some new stuff. The water park. What's the name of that?
Schlitterbahn.
The Schlitterbahn, yeah. Oh, yeah, the Schlitterbahn. I like saying that.
Why do you say?
I don't know.
What the heck? You sound like a bad Hans and Franz sketch from Saturday Night Live years gone by.
I was going for the German thing. It's just Schlitterbahn. Yeah. Oh, yeah, wunderbar. Very good. Schlitterbahn.
You're a mess, dude.
Sometimes. Sometimes. Allegedly, I am at times. The immigration trends are really interesting. And first off, I mean, if they're coming here legally, welcome aboard. We love having people, from all around the world. We are kind of the melting pot kind of thing. I am curious to see about the census info after we fill that out later on this year. And I'm going to be talking about kind of the census idea of the citizenship question they're going to put on that. But I'm curious to see what the stats are going to look like in the new census with the trends on where people are migrating, where people are not migrating to, and where people are coming from around the world.
Well, a sidebar to this story, the Kansas City Star reports that Kansas City's biggest drop in resettling populace, if you will, comes from refugees from Somalia. That's the number that went down the most, was people moving here from Somalia.
And that number went down?
That number, yeah, that's the biggest drop among refugees.
Well, I think that comes from after the executive order that Governor Brownback signed along with many other states saying that they were going to ban a lot of the refugees for a while until the security measures were in place. I'm sure that has something to do with it, you think? I would assume so, at least, with the refugee status with many of them. That's Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
There it is, wrapping up hour number 1 already. When we come back, as we mentioned, we are the thinkers, we are the doers, we're not the complainers, we're not the victimhood status as the conservatives. When we come back, we're going to look at some of the other issues in society. Instead of complaining about guns, we're going to look at the real issues on what may be causing many students to be having issues and wanting to cause harm to their fellow peers. Plus, in hour number 3, we do have a pastor coming on the show, Pastor Darrell Kelley, with a new book, and also the idea of random acts of kindness, which kind of struck home to me, as that was the message after our school shooting with the random acts of kindness. So lots to get to today when it talks about ways that we, not only on the conservative or political front, but ways that we can actually make our community a happy-go-lucky place. Because when it is, no matter where we're at, any local community, any regional community, any state, once we start taking care of our family and our fellow citizens and fellow neighbors, guess what? We're not going to have those problems anymore. So we'll talk about all that when we come back. Lots to get to today. Hour number 2 right around the corner. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas. Great to have you along today on a Wednesday. It is a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday, and that's the way we celebrate. Welcome in to the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM simulcasting KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. We love having you here. 8 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. You can always send me a message there. We love when you do. Leave a comment, ask a question, like it, share it, say good morning, call me a jerk. I don't really care. Does not matter. You can also email me, Andy@KQAMradio.com. Coming up on the show today in about 45 minutes, we have our Sedgwick County Commission update with Commissioner Jim Howell. He'll be joining us also in the 8 o'clock hour. We'll be talking about random acts of kindness. Pastor Darrell Kelley out of Florida, he'll be joining us, and the latest book that he's written when it comes to the religious movement that he's starting, along with the random acts of kindness, how to make our communities happy and better. And it really resonated for me. That's what piqued my interest with that one, why I wanted to get him on the show, was the random acts of kindness. Because that's what we did in our community. After the school shooting that I was involved in, we realized it was a random act of violence, because the random act of violence is what caused this individual to want to come and cause harm to our school. He was an individual that came from Denver, drove 45 minutes up, wrote a big, long suicide note, just wanted to do something bad. And it was a random act. We had no idea. It was not a member of the community. It was not a vengeance thing. It was not a retaliation thing. It was just he wanted to cause harm before he ended up wanting to end his life. So it was a random act of violence. So we turned it around in society until, of course, recently, when some of the victims, not really victims, but individuals that were there that day, as I was, began writing some opinion pieces in Denver for the Denver Post and for the other liberal news papers in the state of Colorado about how it's now gun violence, not a random act that actually happened in our shooting. And now they're the ones helping advocate for some of the gun legislation and gun control measures. So we're the thinkers, we're the doers. As conservatives, we're the ones that actually want to promote something positive. We're not the complainers. We don't like being the victim. We don't like being the ones that sit here and just on the radio and just vent and complain. We do something constructive. We do something positive. And if the guns are not the problem, then what are the problem? What is the problem? What is it? And that's what I want to open up lines to you for this hour, 316-721-8255. The problems that we're seeing in society today, what is the problem? What is the cause to see a lot of these issues? And we've talked about video games. We've talked about the lack of parenting. We've talked about the lack of structure. We've talked about a lot of these issues. And, you know, I poke fun at the millennials quite a bit about the whole Tide Pod thing and about the safe spaces and the therapy dogs and the therapy coloring, adult coloring books and so on and so forth. But when it comes down to it, they are a byproduct of how they were raised. And not to poke fun at any older generations in any way, shape, or form, but are they not the byproduct of the environment that they grew up in? Would they have grown up a little bit tougher without needing a safe space? Would they have grown up a little more comfortable in their own skin rather than trying to change their identity? Would they grown up a little more inclusive with society, rather than wanting to be isolated in their safe space and isolate and do their own thing and not trying to try Tide Pods because they didn't grow up the way that some more in rural communities may have grown up? And is that the fault of many of the parents and the lifestyle and the environment in which they've grown up in, which could be part of it? When we look at individuals that have mental issues or maybe are very depressed or take it to the extreme, kind of like the shooter did in Maryland, where they ended up wanting to go and cause harm to the girlfriend because he was very distraught about the emotions between the boyfriend-girlfriend situation. So he wanted to go and cause harm there. What was was that the byproduct of how he was raised because he didn't have the emotional stability or the emotional support that he necessarily needed to? Or was there some type of disaster, some type of bad thing that happened in this individual's life? And we can look at the deeper connection, unveiling the layers of the onion to figure out what it is. Because, again, the guns are not the problem. So what is the problem? And let's look at it. Well, in the last 2 days, I've seen two different headlines just in the Wichita area here. Number one, Kansas teacher accused of sexual relations with student. Hat tip to Cake TV on this one. A northern Kansas music teacher who was suspended earlier this year has been arrested for unlawful sexual relations. A Concordia Blade Empire reports Concordia High School vocal music instructor Kevin Johnson was arrested Monday evening on one felony count. The 53-year-old was booked into the Cloud County Jail and was released on a $50,000 bond. There's one story. Here's another story for you. Wichita volleyball coach arrested for child sex crimes. The owner of Wichita Volleyball Academy has been arrested for one account of sexual exploitation of a child. The Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office says 44-year-old Jeffrey Sanders was arrested Friday following a month-long investigation by the Exploited and Missing Child Unit. Sanders was booked for one account of sexual exploitation of a child and released on bond. Sanders owns the Wichita Volleyball Academy, where he coached hundreds of girls each year. According to the business's website, Sanders also offers private volleyball lessons. We've seen numerous cases around the nation lately of women who have been sexually active with many of their students when it comes to the classroom. We've seen the allegations of the Olympic training coach that has been exploited and sexual abuse of the young girls that he has trained. And I'm wondering, as we put all of these cases together and we see this ad nauseum, almost on a weekly basis now, of this sexual assault or of rape cases or of the #MeToo movement or these individuals, these teachers who are taking advantage of their students, I'm wondering if by some way, and this may be crazy, I mean, this may be way off the wall here, nutso. I mean, if progressives are listening to this, they're going to think that I'm a little odd. But I'm wondering if the openness that progressives have created in society and the questioning of morals, the questioning of ethics, and especially when it comes to the relations that we're allowed to have in society nowadays, I'm wondering if we have traumatized certain children in their lives to where they are emotionally a little damaged, or they are mentally a little damaged. Now, I'm not saying that this individual that did any of the shootings had some of that. Maybe not. But we're seeing more and more and more cases, and maybe they've been happening forever anyways, and we're just now coming to light because we have the ability to see them come to light because of the medium, because of transparency, and because of cell phones, and because of video footage, and because of recordings, and because of whatever. Maybe it's just coming to light now. But I'm wondering if how many people and how many students have been damaged at a young age, at a youth age, and therefore they're starting off their life on a rocky path, and that's what's led them to become maybe a little promiscuous when they get older, maybe when they have some troubles in their older time, they don't know how to process a lot of bad news, like the individual in Maryland who wanted to go and shoot his girlfriend because they broke up or whatever the case was. Maybe it's the individuals who like to become a little more isolated, need their safe space, and get offended by every little thing. Maybe it's the individual like down in Florida who just didn't like society, didn't like his peers, and wanted to become a professional school shooter. All of these cases lead to some type of trauma maybe in their past, which is that individual in Florida. What happened? Both of his parents had died. He lived in the foster care system, and he didn't have a whole lot of close family. He was a little damaged. How many of these individuals that think about doing these types of things, that may be on antidepressants, that may be depressed, that may have problems, maybe have been because of some type of trauma that happened in their childhood and they weren't properly healing or didn't have the guidance to heal? And with numerous cases, I mean, what was the sick individual at the YMCA's around here that was trying to rape 3-year-olds? I mean, give me a break. Tell me that did not traumatize a 3-year-old for the rest of their life. Maybe it was early enough that they'd forget about it, but there's always going to have that in the back of their mind. There's going to be a trigger some point in their life. There's going to be a trigger. We need to find ways to make the happy community, the happy, wholesome community, without cases like this, without hearing in the news about a sexual assault, without hearing in the news about a rape case, without hearing in the news about a child sex crime that happened from a teacher to a student, that happened to a coach to their players, that happened to a family member or a boyfriend-girlfriend situation or whatever the case is. Do you think that that has anything to do with it? And there's some pretty wild stats on this. Child sexual abuse statistics, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 1 in 4 girls on average and 1 in 6 boys are a victim of child sexual abuse. Can you imagine? That's 25% of the female population and 1 in 6 boys. Self-reported studies show that 20% of adult females and 5 to 10% of adult males recall a childhood sexual assault and sexual abuse incident. During a 1-year period in the U.S., 16% of youth 14 to 17 have been sexually victimized. Over the course of their lifetime, 28% of youth aged 14 to 17 have been sexually victimized. Children are most vulnerable to CSA between the age of 7 and 13. Now, the reason I bring this up, and I'm not going to point fingers necessarily, mostly, for some degree, is because what has led to this very openness in society about wanting to be a little more bold in wanting to go after children. In my humble opinion, and some may disagree with me on this, I'm pretty sure a lot on the progressive side of the aisle would disagree with me on this, but the progressives that say you have morals and values, that's not right because I don't live by those same morals and values. You're religious and we're not very religious on this side of the aisle, predominantly. Some. So therefore, anything that you're taught in church is not right, and we're going to go actually not just ignore it because we don't agree with it. We're going to go out of our way to try and stop it from being taught. We're trying to stop the values and the traditions of society because we don't agree with them or like them. And we've seen stories come out to where, it's okay to question your identity. Why do you want to question your identity? Because you don't feel comfortable in it. Was there some type of abuse in the past? I don't know. But that's their coping mechanism, maybe because they have had trauma in their past. I saw a story about a year or so ago trying to defend pedophiles because it was an individual who said, I'm an open pedophile. I'm not going to go and attack any young children, but I fall in love with them. And I fell in love with this 5-year-old girl who was so beautiful and wonderful, and she had such a free spirit, and she was talking and so happy. Guess what? My 3-year-old daughter talked my ear off last night for 2 hours, and I loved it because she's my child, and I love her to death. Does that give anybody a right to when she starts talking the ear off that they can become a pedophile and fall in love with her in that sense? No. But there's an article out there that actually defends that idea because you know what? Love is love and who cares what it's like? Because we want to try and accept everybody. And with that type of mentality, with that lack of structure, that lack of morality, that lack of ethics, that lack of family tradition is what has led to 1 in 4 women 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys in the nation on average being sexually abused, them having trauma in their childhood, and them not being able to cope with life and later on problems when they actually get presented to them. Do you think there's a correlation here? No, maybe not. But I'd like to actually, connect dot A to dot B. Here's some rape cases in the studies here in the state of Kansas. Kansas from 2016. Rape cases. Under 10 years old was 8.3. 72 rape cases in 2016 from children 10 and under. From 10 to 14 years old, 14% of the rape cases happened with 128 cases. 15 to 19 years old was the peak of it, because they're just starting to develop, just starting to hit puberty, starting to grow up a little bit. 15 to 19 years old, 23% of all rape cases in the state of Kansas, with 204 cases in the year 2016. And then it dips back down to 124 at 14% with 20 to 24-year-olds. Here's the crazy part. When it comes to the relationship of the victim and the offender, 28% was an acquaintance, a teacher, a coach, a friend, a family friend. Boyfriend or girlfriend was at 11%, unknown at 10%, and a stranger at 9%. Do you think that there's a correlation between someone getting relatively close to an individual, like an acquaintance, like a friend, like a family friend, who ends up causing a rape to young children, them being traumatized, and then not necessarily trusting anybody the rest of their life, not being able to have a sustainable relationship, not being able to cope with a lot of people around them, wanting to be a little more isolated, leading to a little bit more depression, and then leading to something a little more violent when they do snap? Do you think there's a correlation? Mostly because of the ideals and philosophy that the progressive ideology, not party, not people, but the progressive ideology has actually promoted in society. 316-721-8255. Being productive, actually trying to find the link other than guns. That's what we're all about here. Let's go ahead and take a phone call, get your thoughts on this. Good morning. What's your name?
Andy, this Heath.
Hey, Heath, what's going on, my friend?
Hey, not much. Hey, you're exactly right. It's a complete disconnection of religion in schools that has taken place over the last few decades, and what happened was when they did that, they did not come out with strong enough penalties for those who wish to do these things to give those people a gut check. I mean, our religion gives us a morality and a basis and a foundation to understand the difference between right and wrong. And for the individuals that don't have those qualities, there needs to be stiff enough penalties to make them wake up and think, oh, I better not do this because of this.
Sure.
And so when that didn't take place, then we have this, explosion of, cases where people just do whatever they want without consequences and stuff. And, I wonder too, I don't know if you heard, but I don't know if it was the president or the dean of Michigan State now has charges against him. Also, the same person that employed the Olympic coach.
Sure.
He has charges against him now that just came out in the last few days. And so, and then when we have these cases here in Wichita or in Kansas with the teachers and students and those types of issues, I wish somebody would go to the PICA and get before the education committee and or the K-12 funding committee and say, is this where we need more money? I mean, do we need?
There you go.
I mean, what? Is this why we need more money? I mean, does our education? I mean, where's our money going? So that we can have just, basically a free society within the schools and without consequences. And I wonder about the coach or the teacher in Cloud County. He got suspended, but I don't know, is he suspended without pay or is he still on the state dime?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, it's not in the story, so yeah, who knows? He may still be getting pay. I don't know.
It's not in the story. And, Brenda Landwehr was on earlier. You had her on, our little interview. And I wonder, she had somebody come before their committee and say that children can't learn well enough in older buildings. A comment like that, I mean, somebody like that should be thrown out of the committee. I mean, out of the committee.
It shouldn't even be listened to. It should just be
something that's stupid.
Sure.
Yes, they should not even be listened to.
Sure.
And so it's very, very frustrating. I mean, when we're dealing with people of that nature, So
it really is, Heath. I appreciate it. You bring up some great points. I mean, now there's a very, very small percentage overall when it comes to teachers that are actually abusing their children. Now we hear it nationwide, all over the place, and you hear about all these women, you hear about the guys, and it's weird because the majority of them that we hear about, it's the women in the classroom that go after the high school boys, and then it's the male coaches that go after the female athletes. And I don't understand the correlation there necessarily, but nonetheless, we're seeing this all over the nation, and you're absolutely right. Now, I don't know about cutting the funding for teachers or anything just because of the fact that we've seen a few cases of that, but it definitely needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis to say, you don't need to be anywhere near children, and we don't need to be defending this. And you're right. Now, I don't like to use the religious argument per se against progressives because if they're not religious, then it goes out their ears, goes in one ear and out the other, and they don't necessarily listen to it. So when we come back, I want to show you how we can argue it with the religious connotation, but through the law, through the Constitution, which is what we're all about, and how we can defeat them at their own game. 25 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Lots more coming up. Stay tuned. By the way, tonight, 8 p.m. here on KQAM, I'll be guest hosting Armed American Radio. Mark Walters stepping aside for a couple of days. I'll be doing that today and tomorrow. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Lots more coming up along with your phone call. Stay tuned. Bottom of the hour news. This is The Voice of Reason.
Political talk trendy.
Oh my God, yes, more.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into it, making it happen today. It is a Wednesday. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Good morning to you. Let's start off your Wednesday the right way. What do you say? Kicking it off, getting you excited, getting you pumped up. Let's carpe diem all over this place. 36 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, I'd love to hear from you today. Question is, unveiling the layers of the onion, peeling it away little by little. What can we do in society to make our society a better place, to make it a happy place, to where we're not seeing issues like this anymore? The guns are not where we need to be discussing. The guns are a distraction. The guns is not where we need to be in any way, shape, or form. So the question I have for you is, where do we go from here, and what do we do to solve it? And Heath made a good point. Now, here's the thing about religion. Look, and I'm a religious person. The question is that those that are not religious, how do you get them to come on board with your argument, and you're right. We can't talk about religion to them in that sense because they dismiss it and they ignore it. The good part is that when we talk about the Constitution, when we talk about the morals, the values, the foundation of what we have, we don't have to talk about it in necessarily the religious context. It's just treat each other as you'd like to be treated yourself, kind of the golden rule thing, that it is a religious teaching. That it is what religion really teaches you, isn't it? Is to treat others as you'd like to be treated. Try and help your neighbor. Try and take care of your family. Try and make yourself a better person every single day. Those are religious teachings, but we don't have to use those in the religious context. So therefore, it's kind of a win-win for us, isn't it? We get to win on both sides by arguing, saying, you know what, you need to hold yourself to a level. Some don't, and some, whether it's because they don't want to, whether because they're afraid they're going to fail, whatever it is, but many on the extreme progressive side of the aisle, the fringe, they say, I have the right to do whatever I want to without any repercussions in any way, shape, or form, and you can't tell me otherwise. I can do whatever I want to do. It does not matter. I can be promiscuous. I can do drugs. I can do whatever I want to. No repercussions, no responsibility. Doesn't matter because you can't tell me what I can and cannot do because I'm a free thinker, man. And there are some that like that. Others understand that we do have the right, we do have the responsibility that if we're going to function in society properly, that we hold ourselves to some type of level and some type of accountability for our lives and for what we do for our daily basis. And that's what we need to work on. And when we do that, yeah, it falls into the religious thing as well. But at the same time, we're working to make ourselves better. Should you be going after a woman in the store that has a child? And in order to get around that, you say that you identify as a woman so that way you can get into the bathroom. No, that's not the way that you handle yourself in society. By trying to defend pedophilia just because of the fact that you feel you have the right to do so because love is love is love is love is love no matter what, and therefore you need to accept it and cherish it and just enjoy it. No, that's not right. Where's that line drawn? I've always been curious. Where's the line drawn when we say love is love is love is love is love, and we don't really care what it is, and we just accept it all? That's great. That's fine. That's hunky-dory. But at the same time, where's that arbitrary line at? Falling in love with your toaster? I mean, I love my toaster. It makes me toast every morning. Falling in love with a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, raping them, there's a line there. 316-721-8255. How do we unveil the layers of the onion? What can we do as a society to make our community better so that way we don't see these cases? Because just in the last 2 days, I've had 2 stories come across the desk on the news from the news desk talking about a child rape case and somebody else, a coach harming an individual in volleyball, and a teacher having sexual relations with a child and raping them and causing harm to them. And that is not going to make our society better. And just imagine the trauma that this child or these children have to go through and what they're going to be like when they get older and what kind of response they're going to have to that. That's what we need to start looking at. Then maybe we can grow a generation that's not going to want to go out and create a bunch of mass shootings. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, this is Helen.
Helen, how are you today?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
Well, all the answers to all of our questions are from the Lord God. Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the love and reverence of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And God tells us in Proverbs 22:6 to train up our children in the way that they should go. And in Ezekiel 18:20, it says, the soul that sinneth, that soul shall die. The son of the child shall not bear the sins of the father, and the father shall not bear the sins of the child.
Sure.
And he teaches us that a good parent can give birth to an evil child. And he's not responsible for what the child does. And an evil child can give birth to a good child.
Sure.
And so he's not credited with necessarily what the good things that the child does. So and the bottom line is that we shall all be judged according to our works in this world, Revelations 20:11-15. So we all have to stand accountable for what we do in this world. We can't blame our parents. We can't blame anybody else. We're all individuals.
That is true. That is true. And I completely agree with you. The question I have is that if you talk to someone who is not religious and doesn't believe in that and wants to go and do their own thing. The question is how do we get them to understand that same type of mindset, but not through the religious sense? Because when you mention the religion, they just kind of glaze over and they ignore it and they pass it on and they just don't listen to it. But to get them to understand holding themselves to an accountability or holding themselves to a standard and doing that without preaching it to them through the religious sense, because when they do, then they don't necessarily always listen to you. How do we get that message across without them wanting to walk away and ignore it?
Well, you can't. Like, you try, you give it your best effort, but just like Proverbs 1:7 says, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. You can't get through that.
You can't get to it. Either they're going to listen or they're not going to listen. Well,
exactly.
And that's unfortunate. I mean, it is kind of like banging our head against the wall with progressives sometimes. Helen, I appreciate it. It's a great point. I appreciate that very much. 316-721-8255. Let's take another phone call. Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. It's Nick.
Nick, what's happening, my friend?
Oh, I was so glad that Helen called in.
I mean, she brings up some really good points. And maybe this is just me wishing and banging my head against the wall and always being into a losing battle. But my goal on the political front, and even in blending into the religious front a little bit as well, is that there's got to be a way. I never like losing battles. I never like accepting defeat on anything. There's always the optimism side of me, the bright ray of sunshine, is that if someone doesn't want to listen to it, there's got to be a different way to reach them and to make the light bulb come on and be like, aha, okay, I understand what he's saying. Even if they maybe don't agree with me, but at least say, okay, I understand exactly where he's coming from, because it's easier for them to understand and begin to absorb it a little bit. And a lot of times there are some that just do not like the religious argument in any way, shape, or form of holding ourselves to a moral standard. And there's got to be a different way to be able to approach this to make others understand what we're coming from and what we're trying to fight for without just throwing the quote-unquote God in their face to where they don't like it.
Well, and that would be in our own personal lives.
Sure.
That we put God number one, and we treat each other as we would want to be treated. So we show them love, whether we're talking about politics or whatever the case. And we say, well, we may not agree with you on this, but we're not going to say that we want to behead you or kill you or anything like that. So the people that are having their Bibles and their guns wrapped in their American flag understand that through the following of certain principles, there is protection and there is good blessings upon our country. Sure. And when we don't follow those principles, then there are bad things that happen to our country, like the crisis of the family. And We're seeing all these things that whether or not we want to call them mental illness or not, or sin, or whatever the case may be, however you believe, we still have a duty to show love to people and to model that behavior so that people would want to come into that fold, not necessarily force them to come into that fold.
Well, that's a great point. And I mean, you really bring it up is that golden rule. And that's really what we have to live by is, treat each other as you'd like to be treated yourself and have respect and teach your family to do the same thing. And maybe, just maybe, we can reach enough individuals to say, you know what, if we make them understand that there are long-term consequences, the cause and effect, which I know in society we've forgotten all about, which is why we have issues like the abortion. I can choose to do whatever I want to do without the repercussions of, and then, I made a bad decision. I got to go clean it up and just get rid of it and forget about it. And if we start teaching again, maybe the long-term effects of things, that if you traumatize a child at a young age, then they may grow up to be a little mentally unstable. They may have a little more depression. They may question their identity in some way, shape, or form. They may try and change their identity, and then they may try and do something drastic that may be out of societal norm, which is maybe an identity crisis, or maybe it is something a little more violent because they've had a lot of trauma. And if we can start minimizing that, maybe we can actually see some productivity. Nick, I love it. I appreciate the call, my friend. Got to take a break. When we come back, we'll have our county update with County Commissioner Jim Howell. Your thoughts and calls as well. Lots more to get to on the show today. Don't go anywhere. 45 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Wrapping up hour number 2. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. It is an issue for sure that we're never going to be able to fix just directly talking about it on the radio, but at least we're coming up with different solutions and ideas other than just saying, hey, let's ban the gun. That's a great idea. Yeah, let's squeeze in one more phone call before we shift gears here. Wallace, good morning, Wallace. What's going on, my friend?
Well, I think what you're missing in this whole teacher-student sex phenomenon is love wins. Love is love. And I don't think you understand that these teachers, while they may be 30, 40-year-old teachers, they identify as 16-year-old students.
They identify they still have maybe the mentality, they identify as an 18-year-old. Therefore, when they love an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old or 16-year-old or 15 or whatever, then they're not really a 40-year-old individual. They just identify as a younger adult.
Well, that's right. And see, this is the slope that the progressives have put on us, because having male DNA and male appendages does not make you male. Having black skin does not make you, African American or black. Having white skin doesn't make you a white person. I mean, this is the nonsense that society is now, to some degree accepting. And frankly, if you have to look at a man who has all the DNA and a prostate and the Adam's apple and everything that makes a man, and he gets to say, but I'm not a man, I'm a woman, then why does someone who is age 40, why can't they say, but I'm not age 40?
I'm not 40. I'm actually 14 right now. It's a great point. That's a great point, Wallace. I don't mean to cut you off. We got to shift gears here for a second, but it's a great point. I mean, that is the progressive movement that we've seen, to where you're not really who you actually are, but you can identify something completely. I'm still waiting for myself to be able to say that I would like to identify as a 4-foot Asian woman. Therefore, well, you know what? Never mind. I was going to say when I drive badly, but then there's a stereotype, and then I'd just be called a racist, and it's just a bad thing across the board. So never mind. Don't forget about it. But maybe then I can get some perks or something. I don't know, because right now, being a white male, I'm not getting a whole lot of perks. So maybe, although I do have white supremacy and white privilege, apparently. It's time for our county update before I dig myself into any holes here. County Commissioner Jim Howell back on the line with us. Jim, can I self-identify as a 4-foot Asian woman, please?
If you want to, I suppose, but I'm going to identify as a 54-year-old white Republican and male.
Oh, and male. There we go.
I am what I am. What you see is what you get. I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right. We got to make sure that we're all clear on that one. Maybe we should be wearing the name tags like KU does with the pronouns that we wish to be identified as. We got about 6 minutes before the top of the hour, but I do want to talk to you. The county, the last meeting of the week, but there is no meeting today. Is that correct?
Right. Again, just to remind everyone, the last Wednesday of the month, we typically do not have a meeting, and so today is typical. We're not going to have a meeting today, so our next meeting will be next week on the 6th of April. I think that's the right date. Anyway, whatever the next Wednesday is where our next meeting will be. And it will be an interesting meeting. We have a lot of interesting things on the agenda coming up. I expect we'll see a few headlines out of that meeting. One thing we're going to be talking about next week would be our Greater Wichita Partnership funding contract. We do that every year. That always brings up a lot of interesting discussion. They will produce some kind of a performance measures report, talk about how the things that they're doing for their community, and I'm sure that will create some discussion. And I think along with that, if I understand correctly, there's going to be some discussion about a funding request. There's a parallel effort. And honestly, Andy, I don't really know much about this yet, and I'm hoping I can learn about it this week. But there's a renewed effort, I think, from the city-to-city tour, which I did go on last year, to Raleigh, North Carolina. The discussion that happened at that time was talking about more about the convention center that we don't have, and how to pay for that, and that kind of spurred a whole lot of discussion about, what's the community actually want here? Does this community want a convention center, or maybe something else is more important? I don't know. What are they willing to pay for? What do they want to pay for? How do they want to do it? Is the Interest Bank Arena a good model? And so there's a lot of discussion that happened as a result of that trip. And so I think out of that, if I understand correctly, is this collective effort between different governments. Wichita is in it, Sedgwick County is in it. I think there's 20 other partners, if I understand correctly, that are donating money towards this effort, trying to figure out what we're doing. Of course, we haven't done any. We have not committed any funds yet. That'll be the discussion next week. So I expect that'll be a very lively discussion. I don't know what we're going to do, how much it's going to be. I'm not even sure what the purpose is exactly. So, this is kind of just developing. And so I expect you'll see some headlines out of next week's meeting. And this will be a good week for us to kind of understand what that's all about. So far,
sure.
I don't know very much about it. So hopefully maybe next week's call we can get into some details on that.
It'll be good to see some details. I know that summertime is coming up, and every summer that the big budget debate when it comes to the county is a huge topical discussion. So between I know a couple of years ago it was the zoo, there's always going to be some crazy topics, and I'm glad we're starting to address them early enough so that way when the budgetary issues do come up towards late summer, early fall, we're prepared for it, and it's going to be a little bit smoother process.
You're absolutely right. This summer we're going to have, I think, 3 public forums, or at least 2 public forums, where people can come out and talk about how they want us to adjust our budget or defend spending or whatever it is they want to advocate for. And the budget process is actually a fairly long process. I would say out of all the things we do, just like in the State House, people say, well, shouldn't they be doing budget and taxes first? Well, actually, what people don't understand is they are. They're doing budget and taxes the entire session.
Sure.
While they're doing budget and taxes, some of that stuff's in a committee. Other committees are doing other things, So that's where some of these, state rock bills and state fish bills and other types of interesting bills come up is because while budget and taxes is being debated, that's what's going on. But once budget and taxes are done, they adjourn. And so even, here at County Commission, I would say we spend about 6 to 8 months of our year working on budget. And that is already started. It started in February, and it's developing. We're going to have budget hearings for every one of our agencies. We have about 45 different agencies altogether that request money that we have to fund. And we get the chance to question them or to adjust their money if needed or whatever. So it's always an interesting time. And I do remember 2015 very, very well. I have learned that the quality of life things around this community are to many, many people here, that is extremely high priority in their mind. And so people want things to do here in Wichita, Kansas. And, for example, the zoo is extremely important. I think the zoo is going to be doing very well going forward. So just as an example, but there's got lots and lots of issues on our budget that are just very similar to that.
Sure.
And the question is, are all of those things going to get funded and to what level? That's always a lively discussion as well.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. Next Wednesday, April 4th, will be, again, the next county meeting. You guys
April
off
4th,
today. But, we're out of time today already, but at least you guys aren't having a meeting. You guys can enjoy the April Fool's holiday, but you can enjoy Easter as well if you choose to do so, and then be ready to be back at it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and next week will definitely be one that we don't want to miss, especially if we want to hold some budgetary discussions at the county level. County Commissioner Jim Howell, always a pleasure, my friend. Enjoy. Happy Easter to you. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, Andy. Talk to you later.
Hey, always a pleasure there. We love chatting with him. County Commission update with County Commissioner Jim Howell. Take a top of the hour break. When we come back, we'll talk with Darrell Kelley, pastor, as he had talked about his latest book and movement for random acts of kindness, ways that we can make our community a better place, and how to actually start holding our community accountable and actually making our lifestyles a little bit better to where we may not see so much craziness in the world. We'll talk about that when we come back. Hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
But if they disagree with you, then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you're probably a white supremacist and you don't have any place in society.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason broadcasting live out of Heart of the Nation right here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM simulcasting on KGPT TV channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along today. It is a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday as we are working through the solutions. We are working through the issues. We are peeling away the layers of the onion, unlike anybody else on radio or in media, for that fact, in any way, shape, or form. Welcome back in. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. We have Facebook Live up. You can email me, Andy at KQAMradio.com. The Twitter's up as well, Hoosier at Hoosier Reason. I forgot my Twitter handle there, but I don't have my Twitter up anyway, so don't worry about trying to do that. As we've talked about in the last hour, and I kind of want to wrap this conversation up a little bit, but as we talked about last hour, it's more than just the guns, it's more than just the scare, it's more than just the political propaganda or the political agenda. And you hear about this David Hogg, you hear about all these other individuals, the activists wanting to change things, wanting to do stuff. And look, I've heard the other talk show hosts that have said, you know what, we don't want to criticize the children because we're glad that they're motivated and excited and encouraged. And I'm glad for that as well. The reason that I've had such a problem with these marches and these movements and the walk out of school and this, that, and the other is because it's great to be enthused, it's great to be active, it's great to be engaged, but in order to change something, you need to know exactly what to change. You need to know what's wrong. You need to know why it's wrong. You need to know exactly what to do to fix it. And then you create a movement and a march around that. You don't just say, I want change. Okay, what do you want change? I want schools safer. Okay, how do you do that? Oh, we need to get rid of guns, because that's always the go-to. We need to be a little more aware, and that's what I've criticized about. If you're going to protest something, if you're going to be active about something, you need to know exactly what you're going to protest to be active about and what you're going to do to change it, which means you need to know the intricate ins and outs of gun legislation, gun laws, background checks, gun shows, gun purchases, the firing of the weapons, the use of the weapons, the styles of the weapons, the types of weapons. You need to know all of that in order to say, okay, this is where we change things. And you pinpoint it. You don't do the broad spectrum, create the scarecrow, and just kind of do a generality. It works very well to be able to get the masses all riled up, but it shows the complete ignorance and ill-informed information that's being spread out there. And that's what I don't want to see. So when we talk about changing things, then we need to talk about changing them properly. And we've had some good traction on that as well. We've had individuals trying to change it by talking about mental illness, which is great, and that's an aspect to it. We need to talk about community, and that's great. That's what we need to work on. We saw the Derby School District, what was it, the elementary, middle schoolers, start working on a random acts of kindness in the community. And let me tell you a story. When I was in high school, and I talked about the shooting that happened in our high school. Afterwards, we labeled it as a random act of violence, and therefore to counter that, we did random acts of kindness in the community to try and heal as a community. It was a very small community, but we healed as a community, and that's how we did it, by random acts of kindness. We had, for almost a week straight, we had individuals who paid for the coffee for the person behind them at the local coffee shop, the little drive-through coffee shop that we had in our town. And somebody else would pull up and it'd say, your coffee's already been paid for. All right, then you know what? Let me pay for the person behind me. And it was going on. It was just the little things like that. It was just the small things to just brighten somebody's day. And with the hustle and bustle of society today, we don't do that any longer. So we sat down, and I want to play our interview. We interviewed him yesterday afternoon. He wasn't able to come on live. He had to change his schedule around. But he is a pastor from Florida, and he's got his own thoughts on religion, which isn't really the focus of the discussion, but his book and the discussion is the random acts of kindness and how we can show kindness in society. And maybe if we start encouraging this type of behavior, we could start seeing a limitation on the random acts of violence that happen in society. This is Pastor Kelley with his random acts of kindness. We spoke with him on The Voice of Reason. Pastor Darrell Kelley on the line with us. Darrell, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Andy, I am doing great, and thank you for having me on your show.
I appreciate it very much. I love the message of the random acts of kindness. And let me tell you a story. My senior year of high school, I was involved in a high school shooting from Platte Canyon High School in 2006. Directly afterwards, we labeled it as a random act of violence at our school. It was a random individual who came 45 miles away to want to come to our school to commit a problem, and we turned it around in our community as a random act of kindness that we started promoting in our community. Here in the Wichita area, we see Derby Elementary School that just came out with their random acts of kindness. And as we look at different communities to see ways where we can take initiative, we can make our schools safe, we can make our communities happy. We don't need to worry about threats or about violence. sometimes the random acts of kindness and just treating people the right way is all it takes to start turning things around. Would you agree?
You know what, Andy? I really agree with you 100%. And that's what we need. We need people to come together and do random acts of kindness only because it's supposed to be in your heart. And if, in fact, you say you're a Christian or you're a Muslim or Buddhism or whatever your religion is, it's still about love. It's about representing God. And that's why we came out with the book Wugim, which is an acronym, which stands for God of the universe, God of the world, God of all gods, God of everything, and God of anything, including me. And we talk about love, unity, and acceptance. And at the end of the day, we need more love. We need more love today, Andy, today, not tomorrow, now.
Mm-hmm. Being a pastor, do you see, because unfortunately, I mean, I'm religious myself in the political world, being a political talk show, it's very difficult to talk about the religious aspect to this. But are you seeing society kind of steer itself away from religion, away from God? And maybe that's why we're starting to see some of the issues we are today?
Well, I could definitely disagree with you on that. I want to disagree with you on that for one reason. It's because when people start staring away from God, I truly believe it's because they're ignorant. They don't understand what God is all about. And that's why I primarily, started a religion. And the religion that I started is Wugim, which is based on love, unity, and acceptance. Because at the end of the day, if you call yourself a man or a woman of God, and then you are totally evil in disguise, that's not love to me. I can't do it. I cannot do it. So I refuse to allow people that's negative and that's evil to change the love that I know that we have in us. We can't do it.
It's encouraging to hear that, that religion's not dead and that people are still being able to turn the way they need to be able to help themselves move in the positive direction like that. Talk about some of the ways with this random acts of kindness that you've been talking about with your book. Talk about some of the best practices that we can have when it comes to the random acts of kindness, being able to do something nice in your community. As I mentioned, after our school shooting, we had a random acts of kindness, and I mean, it was the little things. The coffee shop did in our small little tiny town. Every time that someone went to the coffee shop, it was already paid for when they went there because the person beforehand had paid for it, so they did it for the next person, and it went on for like 2 weeks straight. And it was just the little things that we did as a community to start mending after something devastating like a school shooting. So, I mean, for your perspective, what little things could we do in the communities to show random acts of kindness to our fellow peers?
Well, if you go to my website, which is uwgeam.com, you will see some of the things that I have done. Random acts of kindness. I'll give you an example. I have a restaurant in Georgia, and it's called Soul, S-O-U-L, Delicious. And I was at my restaurant, and a young lady came to me who works with me, and she goes out and helps people in the community. And she came to me and she says, Mr. Kelley, she says, there are people outside sleeping under a bridge, and it's freezing cold out there. I said, you know what? Let's go help them. Randomly, the same day, without even hesitating. We went and we rented a 15-passenger van, and we went to that bridge, and we found those people under the bridge. We tried our best to take them all, but all of them didn't want to come. Only 15 came. We took all the 15 people, we brought them to the restaurant, we fed each and every one of them, and we gave them jobs. And after we gave them jobs, we went ahead and found housing for them. But then they wasn't content with that. Out of 15 people, only one person stayed in that program and became someone. He went to culinary arts and got his degree in cooking and all that great stuff. And that is random acts of kindness. Random acts of kindness is if you see a person outside of Denny's, like this happened too. And I was leaving Denny's. It was late in the morning, and I saw this gentleman out there. He was being prayed for. And when he was being prayed for, as I'm walking by, I stopped, and I said, I can't do this. And I turned around. And when I turned around, I said, excuse me. And I gave this man $200, and then I turned around and proceeded to walk to my vehicle. And then the people who was praying for him, it was a son and a mother, they actually followed me and said, "Excuse me, sir, excuse me." I said, "Yes, can I help you?" She says, "Do you know that you just gave that man $100? I says, "No, I didn't." She says, "Yes, you did." I goes, "Well, I thought it was $200. What's the problem?" She says, "Well, you don't know what he's going to do with that money. He could go ahead and buy drugs. He can do." I says, "Well, first of all," I says, "you can't judge that man. You don't know what his problem is." I says, "Instead of praying for him," I says, "what you should have did was offer him to come inside and eat with you. That's how you can help him. Prayer is good, but the need is important." She says, "Are you a pastor?" I says, "Well, I'm not a pastor. I'm a man of God. I just consider myself as a person." I says, "And how about you?" She says, "I'm a Christian." I goes, "Well, I says, well, a Christian is a Christian, and a man of God or whoever it is a person." I says, "We're going to help the man. Let's try feeding him." I says, "That could be God in disguise testing you." And we went on and on and on and on. that's random acts of kindness.
Sure. No, it really is. Now, here's the question. You bring it up even in that story. Number one, why do you think some people are more apt to practice the random acts of kindness? And on the other flip of the coin, why do you think that some are hesitant to receive the random acts of kindness as opposed to some that actually accept it? I mean, you mentioned the story of the 15 people under the bridge, and only one of them ended up going through the entire schooling, ended up going through and becoming a chef in that degree. Why do you think that not only are some hesitant to actually offer the random acts, but then why do you think that others are very hesitant to actually receive them at the same time?
Well, let me tell you this, Andy. I can't talk for anybody else, but I can speak for myself. It's in you too, probably, and I can feel that you are the same type of person. Random acts of kindness is when you see something. Your mind just takes over and you step in position and you do something about it. Just like with the shooting at your school. You know, you went there and y'all made something happen. It was a negative thing that took place, but you guys made it positive. You changed what had happened in a negative way. It takes the person to have the will, because if it's in your heart, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't change the way your heart is. You can't change the way you are as a person, because when you realize that that's who you are, then you'll realize that you are definitely a man of God. You're about love. You're about unity. And that's what it's all about. It's about who you are. You can't be fake with it. You can't do random acts of kindness because people are doing it. You have to do it because it's in your heart. Mm-hmm. It's something that was given to you, and it was given to you by God. That's my opinion.
Sure. No, you're absolutely right.
When you do something, yes, when you do something for somebody, they will throw in your face, I've done this for you or that for you. No, when you do something for somebody, you just don't mention it anymore.
Sure.
You do it because, you love them.
Sure. No, that's true. That's true. On the other flip of the coin, then, it's in we got a few minutes left here. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on it. But from the other side of it, why do you think that some people are a little hesitant to actually accept that random act of kindness or that gift or that offering that people offer to them to help them? Why do you think that people turn it away?
They turn it away because they don't understand that it was God in the first place. They don't understand that everybody in this world is not the same. They don't understand that people really love you. They don't understand that when they're really struggling, they need a helping hand. They don't understand that life should not be this way in the first place. And once people understand that love is real, once people understand that God is for real, it will be a better place to live. Not only in America, but everywhere.
Sure. Pastor Darrell Kelley, the book is UWGEAM. You can visit him online, UWGEAM.com. Pastor Kelley, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's great work. We love and appreciate what you guys do. God bless you, my friend. We'd love to get you back on the show again later.
I will love to come, but follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well, UWGEAM. But if you follow me home, I call that stalking. And you have a great day, Andy. It's nice speaking to you. Keep up the great things that you're doing on the air, but also in the community. God bless you, man, and you have a great day.
There it is. That was Pastor Darrell Kelley. We chatted with him yesterday afternoon, and his take on random acts of kindness, ways that we can start making our community just a little bit better, little by little, my friends. That's what it's all about. A little bit more religious discussion today than we've had normally on the show, which is not bad when we talk about trying to set the foundation for us to be able to move forward in a positive direction. Let's take a break. 23 minutes past the hour. We'll open up lines to you. It's open lines for the rest of the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back in. 27 minutes past the hour. Great to have you along today on a Wednesday, making it happen, rolling right along. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. It is the pre-Friday celebration. I know you're excited about it. Welcome in. 316-721-8255. Let's go right to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. It's Pam.
Good morning, Pam. What's going on?
Well, you were talking about the kids in the march and all this, and what I would like for them to know before they get backed up with all these big progressive people is the Constitution. We're talking about a guaranteed constitutional right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not ever even mentioned in these conversations. And I understand these kids need to have their voice, blah, blah, blah. But we also need to understand their
Common
kids.
sense.
These are kids.
When David Hogg comes out and speaks nationally and just says that we're going to put the Second Amendment on the ballot to vote on kind of thing because they don't care about the because you're right, we shouldn't even be having this discussion. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, period, end of story. I don't know why we're discussing it.
And you don't get to put the Second Amendment on a ballot.
Right.
And if we want to have the discussion of kids getting killed, okay, let's look at the list. Abortion kills how many kids every single day? Swimming pools are one of the largest killers of children.
Sure.
Space heaters,
opioids,
automobiles.
Yeah.
Automobiles, but we're never going to do all this about cars. And, right after this shooting, there was another one in Massachusetts or something.
Sure.
That was stopped by an armed guard.
You're right.
I heard one news report about it.
Because they don't have the agenda, so they can't rail on it for 3 months straight the way they usually like to do. Pam, I love it. I appreciate it. You got to take a break here, bottom of the hour. But you're right. We're not talking about the other ones. It's the movement to ban the guns because they don't want to have the discussion that the Second Amendment's here to stay, ladies and gentlemen.
Spreading the love on a daily basis.
And I will always love you.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Don't you always feel better in your day after hearing something like that? Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the show today. It's open lines to you. Whatever you want to talk about, you're more than welcome to do so. We'd love to hear from you today. We, ladies and gentlemen, right here on this show, right here on this program, right in our community, we find the solutions. We find ways to make our community better without just doing the abstract, we need to ban guns. We actually do something productive. We do something great. We do something, we actually look deeper into the issue. We actually break it down the way we need to have a substantial discussion. Look, I'm not one of those sensational type of political hosts where we just do the sensation politics and we just generalize everything and do the broad spectrum paintbrushes. We actually try and learn something here. I learned something. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully we do it in an entertaining way and we do it in a way to where we can take it and walk away with it, ponder and stew in it throughout the day while we're at work, and then come home and have an idea on how to take care of our family and how to make our community a better place. That's the goal of this show. That's what we try to do. Now, sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't, but at the same time, at least we attempt it, unlike many others that just, talk about the sensationalism and whatever the flow of the conversation is, then they're just all for it, and they just try and jump on the hype and the bandwagon for that. I'm not that type. You're not that type. I don't think you are, because we actually want something a little more meaty, hefty. Remember those commercials? We don't like to be the wimpy talk show host. We like to be the hefty, substantial discussion. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Just a reminder for you as well, tonight, 8 p.m. here on the KQAM airwaves, I'll be guest hosting Armed American Radio. Mark Walters is going to be stepping out for a bit, so I'll be jumping in today and tomorrow for that show. Looking forward to jumping into the seat of the Armed American Radio studios. We've seen, and I don't understand, and I think that we're a little indecisive when it comes to some issues, as we see, and I want to bring this up again, and if you've called in the show already today, or I guess you can call in and kind of chime in on this one as well, but we're all over the board. We need to have a direct understanding or a direct movement of exactly what we're going to promote when it comes to stuff like substances in the state of Kansas, whether it's the agricultural hemp, the marijuana thing. And it's actually been surprising that this has been such a big talking point this year. I didn't expect it to be so, and it's been shot down, but yet it's still been hyped up all at the same time. Here's just in the last week, here's some of the headlines that I've found. Number one, proposed federal bill could mean good news for Kansas farmers. We talked about this yesterday with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell trying to include the legalization of agricultural hemp into the Farm Bill of 2018. And the reason that they're trying to add the Farm Bill or agricultural hemp into the Farm Bill is so that way farmers nationwide could actually grow agricultural hemp. Now, we've been trying this at the statewide level, hasn't gained any traction, hasn't really gone anywhere. As I've mentioned before, I am a fan of the agricultural hemp and think it would be a fun idea. The issue is that it hasn't gone anywhere, and there's still that stigma that it's related to marijuana. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. We still have to work our way out of that. But I find it first off intriguing at the federal level that we've wanted to start promoting agricultural hemp in the Farm Bill at the same time that we have someone like Jeff Sessions wanting to promote anti-marijuana legislation at the federal level. Then we see how many of the Democratic gubernatorial candidates have come out and said that we need to legalize marijuana in order to fund education in the state, which I respond to as, why don't we look right across our neighboring state with the state of Colorado and see how well that's actually worked out for them. They've been able to fund a little bit of education, but they end up spending it on everything else the way that we would probably spend on everything else. Although I'm sure with how much of a focus we have on educational funding here in the state of Kansas, that would, I guess, go towards the majority of that. But is that really the great thing? Hey, kids, don't do drugs, but you got a brand new school because you got people buying pot. Then we see the medical marijuana issue to where just yesterday the House ended up voting down an effort to try and legalize medicinal marijuana. But at the same time, then we see an issue come across that actually promotes the use of CBD oil, which is really the THC level oil that you can buy for medicinal purposes. We're almost like a 3-year-old child to where we can't make the decision. My 3-year-old is very... she does not know how to make a decision. Hey, Isla, what movie you want to watch tonight? Do you want to watch this one, or this one? Do you want to watch? Do you want to watch Sleeping Beauty? Do you want to watch Aladdin, or do you want to watch Snow White? And she sits there and she just doesn't know what to do, and she can't make a decision, and she looks at them and she's thinking, and that's kind of where we're at right now with our state legislature. We shoot down an effort to legalize medical marijuana, which I'm personally in favor of. In the idea of rejecting it, but then at the same time, then we advance the CBD oil usage for medicinal purposes. We're kind of all across the board. At the federal level, we're seeing the push to legalize agricultural hemp in the Farm Bill, but then we want to enforce marijuana federally at the same time. We need to get straight on exactly what we're going to believe in, what we're going to support, and how we're going to move forward with some of these issues, or else we're never going to see anything productive, and it's going to do is create more chaos in society. Let's go to Rick with the news.
Boom. It's
the humanity!
Ladies and gentlemen,
talking about chaos, how's the world of news shenanigans today?
How are you, sir?
Oh, we're just living the dream.
Do you ever watch the television show Bowl?
Bowl? No, I have not.
Okay, the lead star in Bowl is a guy who was initially on NCIS, and then he spun off, and he's a trial psychologist.
Uh-huh.
And the whole show last night was about CBD oil.
Oh,
really?
And
how a lady had a 13-year-old boy with leukemia, and she was a physician, and the only relief that she could find that would allow her son to live a somewhat normal life
Is
was
the oil.
CBD oil because it calmed the nausea from chemotherapy.
Sure.
Now, I'm going to take you to task on something here.
Okay.
You talk about how, you allude to the fact that it would be just horrible if marijuana were legalized in the state of Kansas on any level, because you'd have to explain to kids how they're... Now, let me finish. You don't get to interrupt me now.
All right.
So how you'd have to explain to kids that their new school was funded by proceeds from people who smoked pot.
Sure.
Okay. Well, do you realize, whether you realize or not, which I'm sure you do, that liquor in the state of Kansas is taxed at an insanely high level?
Yeah. Tell me that every time I go to the liquor store.
So what's the difference?
There is no difference. There's massive hypocrisies across the board when it comes to taxations and what we're using from what tax monies to go to certain things. For example, the latest push with cigarettes as well was to raise the sales tax on cigarettes in order to fund programs that stop people from smoking cigarettes.
That makes sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. Why would we raise the sales tax on cigarettes and then fund the programs to make people stop smoking? Because if they actually stop smoking, they're not going to get the sales tax, and then they're going to be running on a deficit, and then they're going to be asking for more money elsewhere. It's the hypocrisy that we've always used with the government when it comes to liquor, tobacco, marijuana, any of these items, to say that we're going to use the tax money to do something when it's in complete violation of a hypocrisy of what we're using the actual tax money for, when we tell people not to do it in the first place. Don't do drugs because it's really bad for you, but the only way your kids are going to get a nice education is if you buy enough pots for the sales tax to be used for it.
It's not the only way. It's not the only way your kids are going to get a good education. But if people... How many drugs would you guess cross the Kansas-Colorado border? Because it's legal in Colorado.
Massive.
So... people are going to do it.
Sure.
People are going to drink.
Sure.
People are going to smoke cigarettes too.
Sure.
So if we can improve our children's educational process through generating revenue through these sin taxes, I say go for it.
No. And here's the thing. The reason that we're seeing so much come across is obviously because they have it legalized, we don't. But that's created the black market that they say it would get rid of, wouldn't it? When they said that they would legalize that. I'm not a fan. Now, look,
it has gotten rid of the black market in their state.
It has not. Are you kidding me?
In the state of Colorado?
Oh, my gosh, no. It's doubled. It's massive because because of the tax rate that they put onto it, they've doubled or tripled the price of the marijuana, where you can go behind there and actually get it in the black market from somebody else, where you don't have to pay the sales tax of the government on it. It's only increased the black market in the state. It hasn't gotten rid of it.
The world according to Andy.
It's absurd.
The world according to Andy.
I'm not saying that the police need to be knocking on the doors, which they're not right now, and saying, hey, are you smoking pot in your basement, because people are doing it. I'm not saying that, but to bring it out front and to try and utilize the tax money for the government's benefit, to be hypocrites on where we spend it, I'm not a fan in any way, shape, or form.
To the news
I don't
we
like
go.
It. Oh, hold on. We're out of bed music, so let's try it again, shall we? There we go. Let's try it again here. Take number 2 when it comes to the news report with Rick Everett.
Okay, the Salina post office was evacuated yesterday after a suspicious package was noticed in the lobby of the post office. The bomb squad from Fort Riley was called in. The package turned out to be nothing at all, and the post office was expected to be resuming business as usual today. Police in Mays searching for the person who took a 13-week-old puppy from the Mays Woodard Mercantile store. The gray and white Bulldog Pit Bull mix was taken on Monday from the store at 4160 North Mays Road. The person who took the dog was driving a red Chrysler minivan. The Mays Police Department stated that it's possible the person may have thought the puppy had been abandoned and was just trying to find the dog a home. The Woodards, on the other hand, would like to have the dog returned to the store. And your official Easter forecast.
All right.
According to Channel 12. It is saying that for Friday, it's going to be really nice. 64 for a high, mostly sunny. For Saturday, 62 for a high.
Beautiful.
For Easter, 48 for a high.
Why?
And for Monday night, we could dip below freezing. So I want to give that heads up for Monday night. Keep an eye on the forecast. Of course, it's Kansas. It's subject to change. But if you're like this news guy, you probably have green and growing things outdoors that you will need to cover up and take precautions for Monday night if this all comes to fruition. But yeah, so there's your Easter forecast.
Green and growing things.
Sounds like Friday and Saturday are going to be really, really nice.
It's going to be beautiful. And then there we go. Enjoy the holiday. So fun times.
Have a good day, sir.
Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
Got to take a break. Wrapping up hour number 3 already. The show is just about done. We got one last guest to get in here as we wrap up the show today. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the program today right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. It is a hashtag Freedom Lovin' Wednesday. About 8 minutes to the top of the hour, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We've covered a lot of ground today. It's been a productive show. We appreciate that very much, all the phone calls and guests as well. One more guest in studio with us as we wrap up the show, which I am excited about, and they are proud sponsors here on the KQAM airwaves. Rustiak Ford and Les with us. Les, good morning, sir, first off.
Good morning, good morning.
Great to have you with us. And some of the programs you guys do outside of the dealership or involved with the dealership, but some of the community involvement, this entire show, actually, we've been talking about the theme of random acts of kindness and community involvement and making our community a better place, which is what we always want to see. And you guys are hugely involved with stuff like that.
Well, we've 65 years, we've always been very community orientated, and, you got to give back because that's who gives to you. So you got to give back to the community. And we started Adopt a School 15, 16 years ago, back when Winston Brooks was superintendent in Wichita, and kind of struggling with keeping him around a good. Anyway, it came about, and it's been a good program. The Adopt a School golf tournament is something. This will be our 16th year, and every year we fill the tournament. We start filling it right now with golfers, and we always need great sponsors.
Sure.
There's not enough sponsors out there. We get probably several hundred we get more teachers volunteer than what we can actually use. But usually there's several hundred teachers that'll come out during the day, and they'll be stationed around the holes. They'll be serving the beer and the food and all that good stuff, and helping with the prizes. And then basically just talking with the golfers, just one-on-one.
Sure.
I see the golfers interacting with them. What do you use your funds for? What do you teach in the classroom? And actually concerned and caring about, how the teachers interact with their students and what they do with the funds and how they teach on a daily basis. And, it's good to watch the teachers and the business people or the golfers come together and just talk the good of the kids, what's good for the kids. And that's what the golf tournament's all about, raising funds for the teachers and kids in classrooms to help them learn and become better. The Adopt a School golf tournament is one thing, but then the other thing that we've put in about 10 years ago, because we kind of capped out on the golf tournament. You can only have so many teams unless you do 2 rounds, and then it gets very all of our labor is donated. We don't take any money. We don't hire any outside help. We donate 100% of the labor, take no funds out of this. And so we started a raffle program, a car giveaway raffle program, and it was still underneath the Adopt a School 501(c)(3). And it takes off, but it hasn't taken off. I mean, we've had schools that have come in. We've had churches. We've had different groups that have heard about it and have come in and have raised. Like one year we had a band that wanted to go to Washington, D.C., and they came in, they raised $43,000.
Wow.
Last year we had a school that wanted to fund some classroom stuff, and they got behind it and raised like $120,000, $130,000. So
that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's growing pretty well then.
The people that find out about it and have a need really use it and work it and sell the raffle. Their raffle tickets is what they are. They're a $10 raffle ticket, and the person that sells the raffle ticket, the group of the organization, keeps 100%, keeps all $10. That's the beauty of it. We keep not one dime out of any of this. And so if you've got a group, any nonprofit, any group or organization that's nonprofit, it's a baseball team, softball team, youth soccer team, wrestling team, any kind of youth sports, schools, churches, PTOs, anything that's nonprofit is eligible to sell these tickets and keep 100% of the funds. And so we've renamed it Adopt a Cause, because it's for any cause that's nonprofit, not just adopt a school. And that's where we kind of thought maybe it was getting hidden behind the golf tournament. And so, someone suggested this year, a new marketing firm, that because I said, what can I do to get this out? Because it's such a great thing that's still kind of a well-kept secret. And so we changed the name to Adopt a Cause because it's for any good cause.
Sure. It's evolved away from, you still have the golf tournament that's going to be on June 18th with the 16th annual. It's still going really well with that. But then, this is kind of its branched off own entity now to where it's any kind of great cause.
Any kind of cause. It's always been for any cause. But like I said, naming it the Adopt a School car raffle still kind of made people think it was just for schools. And it's not. It's for any group or organization that wants to raise money. Baseball teams, I know this time of year are looking for that, funds. Softball teams, and it doesn't matter where you're at. You can be in Cheney, Garden Plain, Andover, Augusta, Winfield, Hutch. Doesn't matter where you're at.
Sure.
And you've got a chance to win a brand new car. And like I was telling some other folks, the beauty of it is most of the people that have won a vehicle have been deserving folks. The very first one was a paraplegic that his van had just quit, and he didn't have a van for his wheelchair.
Wow!
So he won. He bought it at a church down in Derby, and then one year we had a Hispanic family that had just lost their vehicle for the whole family, and so they won. So it's been really good to watch and see the people that deserve it the most have been the lucky winners.
That's fantastic.
That's the beauty of the program. But it's a good cause for for folks to go out and raise funds and keep 100%.
Sure. No, absolutely. We got about a minute left here, but this is a great way to help the causes, to help the schools, especially with the Adopt a School golf tournament. AdoptASchoolKansas.com is the website if you want information on that. Become a sponsor, partner up with them on that. It's great. But for the Adopt a Cause, how can people get a hold of you guys to partner up and work on that one too?
Call out to Rusty Eck Ford, ask for Vicki McMillan, Daniel Fisher, myself, Janet Cervantes, anybody. Just tell them I'm calling out here for the Adopt a Cause raffle car giveaway program or the Adopt a School I want to be a part of. And, we'll get you the right person. And if they don't get you the right person, ask for me, and, I'll get back
Make
with
it
you.
happen.
I answer my phone. So
there you go. How many people usually show up to the golf tournament?
Well, we fill the teams. It's 40 to 44 teams, depending on how eager we get at the end. And,
sure.
And so, like I said, we have over 200 teachers, and then we have our volunteers from the Rusty Eck Ford, and then, all the golfers and the sponsors. So it's quite a big day.
It's a big day. Les, we appreciate you swinging by the studios this morning.
Well, thank you guys.
Hey, great time there.
Hope everybody shows up at the tournament.
There it is. Adopt a School golf tournament. Adopt a Cause. Great way to get involved in the community, making the community a better place, as we've talked about really the entire show today. So that's really what it's all about. There it is. Show's all done. It's going by quicker than we can ever imagine. We need more time sometimes. As always, this is your show. It's about you. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason. Have a great Wednesday, everybody.